Welcome back to another weekly news video. We're going to touch on a few things in particular, as the thumbnail does say. Did I buy a fake auto at the most recent Sydney card show? I'll unpack that because it's quite an interesting one. This card is authenticated by Upper Deck, so there's some things that I'm a little bit confused on. I'm trying to navigate, trying to figure out whether this thing is genuine or not. So just stay tuned for that. We'll also give a few updates regarding some of the other topics we've covered in the last week, in particular when it came to that PSA authenticated auto card that is probably a good outcome for the buyer. So we'll touch on all those things and then close things out with a very quick mail day and a pretty cool coupon code if you guys are keen fishermen, because that's something that you can actually use to save some money on some fishing gear. So stay tuned for that. Now, like I said, we'll quickly open things off with this situation that happened about a week or two ago regarding Sports Card Madness. They raised this in the first place. They did an interview with a collector, Frank, who bought this card on screen right now from somebody to build out his set. Now, I mentioned in this original video, so if you haven't seen it, please do check it out. It's this one over here. The guy was trying to build out his set registry. He only needed a few more from this set, which I think is the 1968 Topps Tall Boy set, if I remember correctly, and Art Harris was one of them. Now, this card was graded in, I think, October last year. He bought it, a month afterwards, sent it back into PSA to try and get the actual card graded so he could add it to his registry. He paid for an express service, only meant to take 5 business days, ended up taking 5 months. And then PSA turned around and said the card is now fake, or the autograph is fake, and we don't stand by it anymore. So in this video, we basically unpack all that in detail. We explain sort of the expectation gap that exists within the market. Some people think PSA stand by their work. Some people think, autos are guaranteed by them. They're not. So it was obviously a really confusing situation. Now, the update we do have is that the guy has basically got $2,400, sent to him from PSA. Now, that was what he had as the declared value. And obviously one of the issues with this story, if you guys recall, is that the card's actually worth like $7,000, but he only declared it at $2,400 because he wanted to save some money on grading fees. So now he's lost out on money, but this is just a really good outcome for the collector himself, getting that money back, when in reality, PSA's T's and C's say he shouldn't have got anything, right? So this is a really good outcome for him, and just something that we sort of need to remember in this hobby, and we need to talk about this stuff as often as possible, because whilst it's not in PSA's T's and C's, like I said last time, there's an expectation gap that exists, and we sort of need to be looking out for each of our fellow collectors. So this is a win for the small guy, in my opinion, and I hope we see this as being somewhat of a change maybe in how PSA is approaching certain things, because again, like I said in the last video, you have people seeing something in a PSA slab and they think PSA is guaranteeing it, they're standing by it. That is, certainly not the case. And the gap is actually much worse when it comes to BGS and SGC. CGC is probably on par, if not exceeding PSA somewhat, but, it's just a bit of a mess when it comes to grading companies. And that video is a very important one to understand because it clearly highlights, my thought process on the expectation gap that exists, like I said. Now, you would have seen also later in the week, I covered a video talking about thousands of patch shop cards and fake autos coming out of China. And it's, again, a really important one that you guys need to check out if you haven't seen it. I'm going to quickly, recap it now, in the sense that there's a lot of these fake cards, fake autos, patch shop cards, coming out of China. And there's a guy called Sports Card TV who is, flagging this stuff on an almost daily basis. He's now putting out some videos in English to give you guys some context as well. But it's a very important one to look at because these are not just, small time cards. These are very expensive things that are also, getting by the graders and these auction houses. Many of them are ending up on Probstein. Many of them are ending up on other sellers on eBay, other auction houses like Golden, ending up in PSA slabs, BGS slabs. It's quite a scary thing to think is happening, let alone know that it's happening. So, please do check it out. The one update that I want to give is, I forgot to mention, you should also be leveraging the likes of Blowout when it comes to searching for altered cards. Now, this was something that Auburn35 sent me when I was talking to him about potentially some patch swapped flawless soccer cards. This is a thread from 2021, so I don't think it's related to the syndicate that's coming out of China. But if you just type this in, you can also see some patch swap cards happening here. You can see this Robin van Persie being patch swapped there, which is a nice patch in my opinion. It looks like it's part of his number that they're now replaced with that. There's a Drogba over here going from a nice 2-color patch to the Premier League logo badge, and then a few others to the UEFA Respect badge from that, etc., etc. It's quite, again, an important resource, so you should be checking it out in the context of this kind of crap that is sort of happening, within our hobby. So please keep that in mind. Please use the likes of Blowout and Tiffany cards, as I've mentioned before, but just type in, altered cards, and you're going to see a bit more information there as well. And if you ever find anything, posted here, because this is where you're going to get a heck of a lot of eyeballs, and that's where the likes of Tiffany cards Auburn 35, myself and many others can also collate information as well. Now, speaking of Upper Deck, it's actually a really good reference or point of reference for what I opened the video with, a fake auto that I potentially bought that Upper Deck authenticated at the start of this video, and it relates to an Ian Holm autograph who played Bilbo in Lord of the Rings. He played Ash in the original Alien film, and it's this card over here. It's an Alien Anthology card, dual auto of Tom Skerritt, who played Dallas, and Ian Holm, who played Ash. Now, I definitely overpaid for this card considering, you know, market value and all that kind of thing, but seeing at a show here in Australia, I thought it'd be really cool just to buy, and I'm happy that I sort of paid what I did for it. Now, this was actually, fun fact, Upper Deck's first ever non-sports release for EPAC, which I thought was pretty cool. And Ian Holm was actually an exclusive in both the single autos and the dual autos. But what was interesting about this is I made a social media post on my Instagram and somebody responded and said, Daniel, that Ian has some question marks on it. The hobby thinks it's fake. You need to look into it, which is what I did. I came to the Blowout forums and I was a little bit shocked with what I saw because maybe I should have done my research beforehand. But again, like we've talked to in the past, Upper Deck signed off on it. Surely that means it's okay. Well, it turns out probably not. So you can see this thread over here, Ian Holm autograph change, and people have started to compare them to things that he signed for Topps 15 to 20 years earlier. So there's a Lord of the Rings card here from 2003. It's from Return of the King. Apologies. And now you can see what it looks like from the Alien release in 2017. Now, very quickly, this is a dual auto of the same two actors, but this is from the 2017 release. My card is from 2016 Alien Anthology, which came out the year before this one, but covered all 4 Alien films. But the auto is the same as this one over here, clearly from the same sticker sheet run that Upper Deck has used. Now you can see here, it looks nothing like what he signed for Lord of the Rings, and also looks nothing like for any of his autographs in the past either. Even the sort of writing on the H and etc. looks a bit weird. The ending to the word Holm gives me some confidence because you can sort of see here that it sort of follows the same path perhaps. But it's one that I'd need to keep a close eye on. Now, I sent this off to Beckett for a quick review. They refunded my money and said they couldn't render an opinion, which doesn't necessarily mean much. I'm going to send it to JSA once their CGC partnership opens up, because I'm really curious as to what the heck happened here. You know, Ian was quite old when he signed these. He signed these in around 2015. He died in 2020, and he was actually quite of age, if that makes sense. He wasn't a young person when he died, if that makes sense. He was very elderly and looked like he struggled for perhaps his last few years, which is really sad to say and think about. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that his autograph did change, but it looks very drastic. So I'm curious, you know, what JSA are going to say. They're the experts when it comes to, you know, autographs and all that kind of stuff. They have, in my opinion, from what I've seen, the biggest repository of examples to reference when they're looking at this sort of thing. So maybe Ian had some other releases, you know, not for sports cards that, you know, match what this looks like, but it's just a, you know, really unfortunate situation that you've got a company like Upper Deck, as big as Upper Deck is, and they've potentially missed something like this. It looks like somebody signed this on behalf of Ian, not himself. And when you read this thread, it looks like people are sort of saying maybe his wife signed them or something along those lines, but it's an interesting one. So there's other posts in here talking about it getting rejected from eBay. Now that we know a little bit more about eBay, because this is from 2022, eBay's authenticity guarantee, I should say, it was probably rejected because the listing didn't match the description. Some others have sent it off to Beckett and it says unlikely to pass, but again, quick opinions are never foolproof. You've seen things get rejected that end up getting approved, but it's one to keep a close eye on. So I've sort of revived this thread. Like I said, I'm going to send it off to JSA because, you know, I want to know if this thing is genuine or not. I paid a lot of money for this, and whilst the money's probably gone, as I mentioned in the past, I buy things and consider that money gone as soon as I buy them. Much prefer this thing be genuine than not, to be perfectly honest, because it cost me, like I said, about 280 Australian, if I remember correctly, which is probably twice what it's actually worth. A lot more than twice what it's worth if the autograph is fake, but I think it looks awesome, and I'm really happy to have it in the collection. I just now need to prove that it's, you know, genuine. So, you know, stay tuned for that. I'll do a bit of a vlog from the Hobby Hangout. I put together the videos for you guys, and you can see what else I bought and also what I sold. But one to keep a close eye on. So the second JSA's partnership with CGC Open, I'm going to send this in. I don't want to send it in beforehand because I'd like to get it slabbed in the same process, because it's also cheaper from what I can see based on what they've done for comic books. But anyway, I'm rambling now. You guys get the point. I've got a pretty cool mail day to show you. I'm going to have to cut the camera and then show you, but it relates to some tobacco cards from 1938. And as you can see on screen now, this is them. I basically bought a whole set off eBay, and this is produced by two separate companies, Capstan and then also Vice Regal. It's called the Fish of Australasia set, and I think there's 40 48 altogether, or roughly around those that, you know, show some of the species, both fresh and saltwater, that you can catch in Australia. Now, I mentioned a few times on the channel, I'm a pretty keen fisherman. I didn't know this set existed, and I just think it's pretty cool because if you do, you know, check out the back on some of these, like a lot of these fish are things that I catch. They're pretty much bread and butter species here in Australia, and apologies for the shaky cam. I need to figure out how to show my cards and mail days off a little bit better, but you can sort of see here, tall wine, it's a pretty common fish, and it gives you some context as to, you know, where you catch it and what it's often, you know, confused with, or what kind of bait you can be using, or how big some of these fish get. And given that, you know, this set is from 1938, I just think it's pretty damn awesome to see, you know, number one, how these were, you know, hand drawn back then, and then number two, you know, what they sort of said about the fish, in particular those that are actively caught today. Because, you know, 100 years ago, essentially, you've got, you know, differing opinions on maybe what these fish were caught or some of the baits to use and the like. So again, there's like kingfish there, a few others that you can catch, you know, locally, Australian salmon, both fresh and saltwater stuff. Again, just pretty cool. Didn't really cost me a whole lot. I think it was like $35 or $40 Australian, including shipping. Again, it's just pretty cool. Like there's a flathead there, which is one of the fish you chase here in Australia when it comes to sport fishing, from a bread and butter species. There's a dusky flathead. There's actually 3 different species. But give you some context as to typically where you find them and the like. And there's a few fish on here in particular. I'll see if I can find it. It's a mulloway, or referred to as a jewfish, which I think is over here. So this one over there, it's got a few different names. The reason why it's called a jewfish or a jewelfish for a nickname is that you can actually find some pearls inside their head when they get to a bigger size, and people like to take them out and collect them. But that's what they look like. And as sort of on the back, it talks about, you know, some of the sizing they can get to. They talk about up to 70 pounds. You know, huge ones that people catch. I've never caught one because they're quite an elusive fish, but I'm actively, you know, trying to chase them. This is the rest of the set. Some of these fish might look similar for you guys in the States. There's a snapper there. There's a leather jacket. That's a flounder or a sole, depending on where you are in the world. Some eels and the like. And just a few others like blackfish over there. You catch those with seaweed or type of weed. Can also catch them on bait, but it's a bit tough. And the like. But I thought this was pretty cool. I can show them off in more detail if you guys are keen. But I am an avid fisherman. I'm going to start doing a video series on my channel, as I've mentioned before, called Fish and Rips, play on fish and chips. I've got a box down there full of that wax that I showed off a few weeks ago. I'm basically going to rip those and do some fishing content, try and do something a bit different for you guys. And then maybe also do some hobby talk in there as well. I'm going to be doing that, you know, over the next few weeks. I'm going to try and record it. I'm heading up the coast, so going to hopefully concise and consolidate a lot of videos and release them over time, but hopefully you guys do like that. One thing I should mention is that there's a discount code that I've actually gotten from DigiTaka, which is a tackle store based in Japan. It's actually quite popular. So I purchased some stuff off them recently. I hadn't really used them before, but the prices are quite good. So I picked up this Shimano Twin Power. If you guys are a fisherman, you'll know what this is. It's essentially the Stella's baby brother, which is the best reel you can buy. Cost me $461 Australian. They retail for here about $9.50. That included free shipping, and I got it within 3 to 4 days door to door. Again, I'm not sponsored by them per se. I just reached out and said, listen, I want to start doing some fishing videos. Are you guys keen to maybe give my viewers a discount code? And they said they were, purely because I am a card channel and not a fishing channel. They obviously have a lot of people lined up from an influencer perspective. But there's a discount code that I can put on screen now. It's 54F, and it'll give you 500 yen discount, which is about $5 Australian. Not a heck of a lot, but they don't typically do discounts normally. I don't get any kickbacks or anything like this. They basically told me, yes, we are keen because we want to release some of our own trading cards perhaps, and this makes a lot of sense. We'll keep this thing running, and then depending on how many people use the code, you know, we'll, you know, maybe give you some stuff to review and the like. And again, I'm not super interested in that. I think it'd be fun to do, but I'm purely getting the discount code to give some of my fellow viewers that do like to fish something to use. And like I said, if you go read Reddit or some of these forums, people talk about DigiTaka amongst other stores quite a lot. Their customer service is fantastic. I've used them a few times now in the last month. I bought that reel that I said. I bought my father-in-law a reel, so I'm going to be using them again. Their shipping is incredibly fast as well. So if you are going to be using them, you get $5 off now Australian. So, you know, it is what it is. Anyway, that's sort of it for today. I need to try and figure out a better way to show my mail days. I used to use a down camera, and you guys will know I upgraded my face cam recently. And since I did that, my down camera doesn't really fit on the desk. So I need to work something out, because this is a bit of a pain in the ass. But I hope you sort of like those tobacco cards, because whilst they are tobacco cards, I think the artwork on them is fantastic. And, you know, I'm really keen, as I didn't mention, to actually frame them all up. They're mixed back like you saw. Some were Vice Regal, some were Capstan. I I want to try and get all the same, basically put them in a frame, have the picture of the fish and then the backing next to it, put it up on my wall so I can sort of read it, because again, I am an avid fisherman and this stuff is just super exciting. It's basically two hobbies merged together. Now, as always, like I say in these weekly news videos, if there's anything I missed with any things I covered, please drop it down in the comments below. Let me know what your thoughts were about, that fake autograph that I bought and what the heck Upper Deck is actually doing. Let me know your thoughts on the outcome that Frank got regarding that fake auto on his card, because, technically PSA didn't need to do anything. So, kudos to them for doing it. But, it's just a really messy situation all around. Anyway, that's sort of it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.